Okay. So, but then after that, your parents probably wanted you to consider university.
Yes. So
How do
way
you
back,
navigate that
I didn't
conversation?
want. I lost interest in university when I was in JHS.
Was that driven by some of the IT or tech heroes that didn't go to university or dropped out of university?
No.
Or you just
At the time, the single pivot point for me was that article.
okay.
So in my case, I was like, you know what? If that is going to be the future, which at the time I didn't know for sure it was going to be the future. It was like these sensational articles. This is dead. This is the future.
Yeah.
So like, okay, then I want to be there when that future happens. So why don't I cut the shortcut? Now I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Why don't I go straight to that thing instead of going around?
So you didn't feel a duty to go to university? Because some African parents, it's just like, you're supposed to go to school. Why? Because I said go there.
That ended in JHS.
But so your parents didn't try and tell you that? Or they tried and you were stubborn?
Yes, I was stubborn, of course.
Okay.
And that was even why my friendship with Annor Sasu ended, because my dad did a whole this thing that, like, but
he was leading you astray.
he thought he was leading me astray, went to the family to tell them they should stop their kid from associating with me and all. It was a whole mess.
But how's Annor Sasu doing? Have you reached out to him? Have you met him?
I don't know what he does at the moment, but there was no way he was going to fail in life. Like, he's a brilliant kid. So, okay. I mean, you know, there are some people similar.
Well, maybe your dad knew he was a brilliant kid, but I wasn't sure about you.
Maybe.
My son is going around with this guy who's a brilliant kid who never failed.
Maybe. But you know, the funny thing about that was that day before you went, my dad was angry to go and tell them to tell me to not let their kid associate with me. Only for him to get there and realize the man is a bank manager, the mother is a teacher in the school, and so my dad flipped the script and be like, "Oh, my dad is now my kid is a bad one." So
influencing your son.
And at that moment, I was looking at my dad like, "Hey, if you are willing to throw your kid under the bus in a flip just because the person you went to meet is of relatively high status," I'm like,
sometimes you have to switch your strategy.
Because when you
say that he will be a bad influence on you.
Exactly.
And
because when we went, and they lived in a really good house that, compared to where we stayed, it was better. So
what do you think your dad should have said? Once he gets there in the house, everything is good. You have to understand him.
You know, it's like you hear of someone doing something bad, you want to go and fight them, only to go and the person is like, and you be like, oh, you know what?
Let's talk about this. This is just diplomacy. Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was similar. He was like he doesn't understand who this kid is, and the parents are letting their kid influence my child not to go to university, blah, blah, blah. Let me go. And then.
So Annor Sasu didn't want to go to university.
So the plot twist to this was that the mom was interested having me around because I was good academically.
Okay.
Therefore, the mom was happy to have someone who is good academically influence her child, who she didn't think was pulling his weight.
Yeah.
Because he was like the only kid. So, I mean, from the perspective of the parents, he's not doing well, like not being serious. So I would go to their house and the mom would serve me tea and all of that. Like, she was happy to have me around his son because if I am good academically, I will hopefully rub off on him.
Yeah.
Only for them to be in the house one day, for my dad to be like, don't let your child associate with him. And so the parents, and I hope maybe they see this video, they were confused, like, wait, what? But your son is better than my son. So, so they did not understand it. And if Annor Sasu is watching the video, probably will understand it. The original intention was to come and blast them.
So now you're snitching on your dad.
And that was the plan.
But then,
to go and blast them, only to
got
get there and realize, oh, these people are doing better than me. Therefore, then be careful of your son, so that my son doesn't spoil. And I was looking at my dad, was like, okay.
So, but this also shows the importance of research before you go to battle.
Exactly.
Research and understand what you're going against.
So it was one of those things. And after that, I couldn't, like, my friendship with Annor spoiled. We still chat once in a while. I have his contact, but the way we were close, like, it kind of, it ended up putting like a weird feeling between us. And it was one of those things. I hate it till now that happened. And for an invalid reason, a friendship was destroyed. I still hate it till now. Like, and they probably do not know until they didn't understand at the time. They were probably confused. But yeah, if Annor says you are watching this video, that was the reason. Like,
okay.
And so that was it. And that was some of the resistance I had when it comes to not going to university. They didn't understand why a guy in JHS2 doesn't want to go to the university. It didn't make sense.
But you can understand why they would even advise someone else's son to stay away from you.
And I do. And I
think...
you're
stubborn. Like at JHS2, and you decided you would go to
I
university.
lost interest in schooling at that point in time. Didn't care about my BC. Because for me, the reason at the time was that I am going to the university to pursue something. So the path is to lead to something. In this case, I know where I want to be already. At that point in time, why don't I take a path targeted at that?
So you knew that you didn't need university to pursue.
But I knew I needed to do a professional something. At the time, it was IPMC and IIT.
Did your brothers do IPMC or did all your brothers do university?
They went to university to do computer science.
Okay.
And then they did programming. But here's the thing. The university didn't actually help them to do their computer
So you
programming.
observed it at that time.
To realize that
you didn't need this university degree. Okay.
So in my case, I was like, instead of doing that, I could cut corner and then jump in line by doing something professional.
So this is my observation.
At the time, that made sense to me. And I think it was possible. Realistic? It didn't sound realistic, but I knew where I wanted to be.
So it looked like your brothers were alpha and beta tests, and you realized that this is where they've ended up. And then also, I can imagine that being that young, maybe we aren't even conscious of it. There is the desire to move quickly, like catch up.
Yes.
So your brothers are doing this, okay, but the future is this.
Yes.
They went to university and they've come back here.
Yeah.
How do I catch that? So obviously you were trying to map out the world in a way that made sense to you.
Yes, and see how to get ahead
yes.
in the shortest time possible.
Okay.
So personally, to me at the time, even from the GHS, I genuinely didn't want to go to secondary. Mm-hmm. That's how fast I wanted to move. So I jumped in line to the point where it was more like an obsession, so that I can absorb as much as quickly and then spend the next few years whilst my colleagues are studying and getting their degree. I am working, getting experience, and then rising. So by the time the web arrives, I am on top of the food chain, so to speak, and then hopefully I can employ them.
Okay, great.
So in my mind, I was like, how do I jump to the end of the line as quickly as possible?